I've got my coffee. I hope you've got yours. Have you ever been told, I've got your back, I agree with you, but please don't tag me and I'm not going to answer? What does that actually mean? Because if you've got my back, why can't people know you've got my back? Before anyone thinks this is about social media, it isn't. Social media is just where we see it most. I'm talking about life. How often do we hear things like, I agree with you, I believe you, I support you, I've got your back? But please don't mention my name. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to take sides. Oh, just too much drama. The more I think about it, the more I realize this isn't really about those words. It's about what silence does. And it makes me wonder, if you've got my back, why does it still feel like I'm standing here on my own? Because does friendship mean taking sides? And are we so afraid of raising our opinions in case people stop communicating with us or cut us out? Does friendship really mean you have to take sides? I don't think it does. If we're friends, I don't expect you to agree with everything I do. I'd actually hope you tell me if I'm wrong. I'd hope that you would challenge me, that we could be honest enough to have a conversation about the things that we agree or don't agree on. So when did friendship become the same as endorsement? When did standing beside someone become the same as saying, I agree with everything they've ever done. I agree with all their behavior. I agree with them 100%. We're the same person. And has it always been like that? Or have we become so afraid of being judged by association that we've started stepping away from people the moment life gets messy? Maybe we've confused supporting a person with supporting every choice they've ever made, because those aren't the same things. You can disagree with someone's choices and still care about them. You can challenge someone and still stand beside them. You can refuse to defend bad behavior without abandoning the person. So maybe friendship isn't about taking sides at all. Maybe friendship is about showing up. So recently, I was put in a position where I was called on to help somebody. But everybody that wanted to help this person wanted to help them secretly. And over the years, I've been the secret friend of many people. And to be honest with you, it hasn't been a comfortable space for me. Because being a secret friend feels like rejection and abandonment. It feels like people expect you to have their back when they need you, but they're never going to have yours. And so maybe we're asking the wrong questions, because we spend so much time asking whose side you're on. And that's the wrong question. The better question is, what are the values I'm standing for? Because I can stand for kindness and truth, and I can stand for dignity. And at the same time, I can stand against bullying, and I can stand against abuse. And none of that means I agree with everything another person has done. It simply tells people what kind of person I want to be. Maybe courage isn't choosing people, it's choosing values. I don't want to take sides really interests me, because sometimes there's more than two sides. When someone's being bullied or abused or humiliated, what does I'm not taking sides actually mean? Can you stay neutral? Does that mean that someone always ends up standing alone? Or do you just take the side of the more popular person or the easiest path forward? Not every disagreement is black and white, and there's often gray areas. Life is really very simple. But I'm wondering if you refuse to join an argument and still refuse to ignore suffering, is there a difference? Is it okay to just be quiet when it's clear that someone needs your assistance? I think there's a difference between having someone's back and being a secret friend. I really do. I think we've all heard I don't do drama. Honestly, it's not about drama. What do we mean when we're saying that? Have we started calling a difficult conversation drama? Have we started using the phrase because it gives us permission to walk away and look the other way? Because now it's difficult, it's uncomfortable, and we actually have to do something about a situation that maybe it would be much easier to just stay quiet about. And where's the line between protecting your peace and avoiding your responsibility as a human being in a connected society? I don't have all the answers. I'm genuinely thinking out loud. Safety, privacy, secrecy, are they the same thing? Safety is protecting yourself from harm. And privacy is deciding what parts of your life belong to you. But secrecy is something else. Secrecy is about not wanting to people to know where you stand. It's not wanting people to see your shame and your fear. Maybe secrecy is a little bit of a lack of courage of your conviction. Or is that unfair? Why don't you let me know what you think? Because being a survivor and working with survivors has taught me that people remember who hurt them. They also remember who stayed with them. And they remember who disappeared. The people who stopped calling. The people who quietly said, I believe you, and never stood beside them again. So Martin Luther King Jr. said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. The silence of our friends. Does that still matter today? Or is it more important to fit in with the crowd? Have you ever noticed how often people will say, oh, don't worry, someone else will speak up, or someone else will help, or I'll just call someone else will check in, someone else will make the phone call, someone else. But nobody does. I wonder how many problems survive because of that. How many situations just stay the same because we're all waiting for someone else. Because everybody just assumes that someone else will deal with it. And that's uncomfortable. At least it's uncomfortable for me. But before I point at anyone else, I have to ask myself, have I ever been the secret friend? And I have. I have, because I've been asked to be. And I didn't have the courage to say no. I'm not going to be your secret friend. Have I ever cared about someone but stayed quiet because speaking up might cost me something? Not as often as I think other people do. Have I ever worried more about what people would think of me than about what someone else was going through? I can truly say I worry about what people are going through. And I've reached a stage in my life where actually what other people think doesn't make a lot of difference to me. But I have confused keeping the peace with keeping quiet many times in my life. And I think that's one thing that's changed over the years. So these aren't just questions for you, they're questions for me. There's a saying, and I think it's linked to Edmund Burke, but nobody really knows. And nobody really knows exactly what he said. But it goes something along the lines of the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. That's not a criticism. That's a challenge. That's saying, hey, have a look in the mirror. Are you doing nothing? Because maybe the question isn't whether we're good people. Maybe the question is whether our actions match our values. Maybe that's what it means to be brave enough. Not shouting the loudest, not winning the argument, not proving you right, not trying to fit in. Maybe being brave enough is choosing your values before you choose your comfort. Maybe it's standing beside someone who's standing alone. And maybe it's saying, I don't agree with everything you've done, but I refuse to stop seeing your humanity. Maybe it's speaking when it would be easier to stay silent. And maybe it's asking the difficult question when everyone else changes the subject. Maybe the people who change the world aren't the loudest people in the room. They're the ordinary people who quietly decide it stops with me. So this week, don't ask yourself, whose side are you on? Ask yourself what you stand for. Because people who forget the arguments, people will forget the arguments they've won. But they'll never forget who stood beside them when everyone else walked away. So here's my challenge. Be brave enough to stand for kindness. Be brave enough to stand for truth. Be brave enough to stand for dignity. Be brave enough to stand beside the person who's standing alone, because courage isn't measured by what you believe. It's measured by what you do when believing has a cost. So until next time, be brave enough.